This is Shai. Today on The Joy of CAD, we are going to explore the use of some key drawing commands in AutoCAD 2017. We're going to focus our attention to the Draw panel, which is located in the Home tab of the ribbon at the top. You'll notice that the most used draw commands are easily identified at the top, whereas if you pick on the little down arrow there, left click, that will pop out an additional menu of lesser used commands, but still important. So we're going to start with the line commands. So there are several different line commands that we can use. We'll start with the first, the line, and we'll just draw a few lines here. Alright. You'll notice that if I've exited out of the line command, if I left click on one of these items, it just selects that line segment. So the line command creates a series of line segments. And you notice here, line is selected. If I select all of these, you'll notice there's 6 lines selected now. So 6 individual line segments. The next line type is the polyline, or PL. And I'll try to enter these into the keyboard so you can see the quick key commands to initiate these. So if I create a few lines here with my polyline command, you'll notice when I select this that the entire line is selected. So not just individual segments, and it's showing here polyline. If I create another polyline and I select both of these, you'll see it shows 2 items selected. So whereas the line command up here created 6 individual line segments, the polylines created, there are multiple lines making one segment. So next we have the spline command. Up here in our drawing menu we have a couple options for the spline command. The quick keys are SPL for spline. And you'll notice this is more like a fit curve. So if I highlight this, you'll notice that the grips along this length can be adjusted, and you can adjust your spline in different positions. And if we highlight the properties palette, there's spline, one individual item selected. And finally, we have 3D polylines. A 3D polyline is meant for drawing line segments in 3-dimensional drawing spaces. So it's one contiguous unit, item, polyline, but generally for 3-dimensional purposes. One more note about polylines. We don't have to do just line segments. We can also, if you notice at the bottom in the command bar there are these extra options. We could, for instance, type A for arc and add some arcs to the polyline. And if we highlight this again, that's treated as one line segment. Now, some additional commands that you might want to know. Let's say that we want to break this polyline into individual segments. We can use the explode command, which is located up here, or we can just type explode and highlight this by left clicking and then right click, and you'll notice now that item that was one unit is now showing up as 4 individual line segments. So the explode command will convert a polyline to a series of line segments. Likewise, we can take a join command, and we can combine multiple line segments. Again, I just left-clicked on the item and then right-clicked and create a polyline out of that object. So the original lines we drew up here at the top, again, we can use the join command, highlight those, and now it's treated as one unit. Another option, we have the spline edit command, where we can take a spline and break it apart and convert it to a polyline. So that is the spline edit command. If we select the spline, we can then convert, left-click on Convert to Polyline. It'll ask for the precision. Let's just say 20. The higher the number, the more precise it'll be, but the more line segments, individual line segments, it'll be broken up into. And now if we highlight this, you'll notice there's a ton of little individual line segments making up that line. And that's just a series of, that's just a polyline. So you can convert your line types, between polylines, lines, and splines using those commands. All right, so let's clear our drawing space. A couple additional line commands that you can use. There's the construction line, and you'll notice that we pick 2 points and we get a line that is of infinite length in both directions. This is useful if you have, say, a big drawing, you want to line things up across large spaces. You also have the ray command, which is similar to the construction line, but with the ray, it is bound on one side and extends infinitely in the other direction. So I don't use these commands that often, but they are useful if you're working with a large drawing or you need something where you can reference off of a set line. Let's see. We also have the point command. Now these might be kind of hard to see here, and if I try to scroll in on that, you'll notice that I can't. It just remains a blip on the screen. Points are really useful to define locations of specific things, like coordinates or whatnot. In this case, let's say I want to see those points a little bit more easily. I can use the DDP type command or P type, and that brings up a little palette here. Let's say I want to change the point style from the blip to this. I'm going to leave it at 5%. Say OK. Now I actually can see these blips more easily. Those are really useful. That is the P type command, P-T-Y-P-E, for converting your points configurations. Let's see. A couple more useful commands while we're down here. There's the divide command. We'll use that. We'll create a line. And the divide command, if I select this, it wants to know, select the object to divide. Okay, and now it wants to know the number of segments to divide. I'm going to choose 5, enter, and you'll notice that it inserted 4 points, just like we used here, along this line and divided this line into 5 pieces. Really useful. The next command is the measure command, which is also a really useful feature. We select the object, and let's say we want to measure 1-inch increments along that line. we'll select 1. Our units are set at 1 inch right now, or inches. And it inserts several of these points along this line, beginning from the start of the line all along. So you'll notice if I zoom in here and I take a distance measurement from the start to this point, and the object snap for point is node, it tells me that the distance is in fact 1 inch. Now this distance at the end would be less than 1 inch, of course. Alright, so now let's erase these and let's continue with the circle command at the top. Now you'll notice there's a little down arrow here, which means there's more options. So if I select left click the circle, you'll see these additional options here at the bottom. So those are all different ways of drawing a circle. The quick key for circle is C, and the default is to choose a center point and a radius, and I can draw a circle. I could also select, and then you'll notice at the bottom I could override with a diameter by typing D, enter, and now I could enter a circle using that. Additional circle commands which are useful: the tangent radius command, or T, allows me to choose the tangent of this circle, the tangent of that circle, and then choose a radius. I'll say 2. And it'll fit that circle along this tangent, that tangent, and whatever radius I specify. This is a really useful command. I hope you remember it. I think you'll see that this comes up in a homework assignment much later. So next we have the arc command. Again, there are a number of ways of drawing arcs. Arc is A, click command. You'll notice that you can draw an arc in either direction using this option. However, if you draw an arc and you specify the center point, C, and many of the arc commands are like this, it will only draw in the counterclockwise direction. So when you go to draw your arcs, many of the arc commands will require that you draw in the counterclockwise direction. Don't forget that. Rectangles. We can draw rectangles or polygons. Worth mentioning, when you create a rectangle like we just did, if I highlight this, if I left click, notice that that rectangle is drawn as a polyline. If you want to convert that rectangle to a series of line segments, you would want to use the explode command. Left click on that. Now you'll notice that it is in fact lines. And if we highlight the whole thing, you'll see 4 line segments. So the next command, let's see, we're going to skip over the ellipse command. It's not really that useful. Let's say we want to use a hatch command. There are lots of different hatch options. If I select hatch, I can select in this inside an object, and it will hatch that for me. Now notice when I initiated the hatch command that I got all these additional hatch options at the top within the ribbon. So I can go in and I can specify things like scale. Let's say I want to reduce the scale, or maybe increase the scale. I can do so. Let's make this 3 so you can actually see it a little bit easier. I can change the hatch types. And there, as you can see, there are lots of different hatch options available. Hatch is a really useful command. You'll use hatch very, very frequently in your drawing exercises. So next we have the region, wipeout, helix, donut, and rev cloud commands at the bottom here. I'm not going to discuss these. I don't think you'll use these very often. The helix, donut, not really useful. The revision cloud, now when you get out into the engineering world, these revision clouds are really useful. You use those for marking up drawings, highlighting revisions and whatnot. So when you get out in the real world and you're doing engineering work, you will use those rev clouds quite frequently. So this concludes this session of The Joy of CAD. Enjoy!